The 10th day of January, 2016, and this is the Radical Agnostic, the fastest growing podcast coming from Central Tucson in my apartment named the Radical Agnostic. It's a big show for you guys. We got a great show again. I'm your host, John. My co-host is Mark.
Hi.
We got the stowaway guest, Brian, motherfucker, Richter.
Howdy.
And the other guest, Eddie West.
Hey guys, how y'all doing?
Booyah. Lots of fun stuff, guys. Lots of good topics. A lot of stuff happened this week. First of all, very exciting. Thanks to Eddie West and Greg Prill. The Radical Agnostic website is up and running, fully functional, looking good. You can hear our last episode on there and our first, and then I'm going to be uploading all the rest as we go. So you'll be able to find all of them there. We have like an RSS feed, which is this fun, fancy thing that is helpful. And very soon we'll be on iTunes.
It gets a little complicated after that.
So this is big stuff, guys.
Radical Agnostic is now available on your favorite podcasting app, unless it's iTunes.
Yeah, the one that everybody uses. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, Jesus. We could start with some movie reviews.
Most folks don't know that John does this show from the bathroom.
Yeah.
While dropping it.
We sit in the living room
Yeah. It's just how I like to do it.
with our backs to each other, naked.
Oh, if we look at each other, that makes it gay.
Yeah, eye contact is...
Yeah, unless somebody cries at the end.
Oh, I also want to mention Brian's friend on Facebook that I just became friends with does his own podcast called The Big Jiu-Jitsu Show.
Sean Kyle?
Sean Kyle?
Yeah.
And so I took a look at it. He had a former UFC fighter on there, I think, recently. And you guys, if you're interested in jiu-jitsu, that's the place to go to hear about the latest and greatest in the sport. So The Big Jiu-Jitsu Show, check it out.
Just talking about that. Is there any academies that are run by Jews, and so they're called Jiu-Jitsu?
I've thought about that before. JEW Jitsu.
Yeah.
Jiu-Jitsu. No, I don't think our Semitic friends have broken into that world too much.
It's Krav Maga.
Yeah.
Because Krav has some ground fighting in it.
But see, when I open a school someday, I'm going to be able to call it JJB BJJ. So that's cool. And I make a little graphic that makes it look like a mirror image or something.
And no matter what you do, all people are going to look at is BJ.
Well, that's just that's the reality
I
we
thought
live
he was
in.
going to call it third hook jiu-jitsu. That's what
No.
I've been telling him ever since the beginning.
No.
Third hook jiu-jitsu.
Brian, we don't want to bring sexuality into our art.
JJB.
Not a good way to get the ladies to train.
Doesn't just roll off the tongue, though. Too many J's and B's.
3 movies have recently come out that are strikingly similar in sort of setting and theme. So the first one is Tarantino's new movie, Hateful Eight, his 8th film. It's been getting wrecked on like the New Yorker and the Atlantic, just really tearing into it as like it's just Tarantino spilling out his violent, fetishes into film, and there's really nothing to it. I really liked it. It was too long. It's like 2 hours and 45 minutes, but it was really good. I mean, as usual, every line delivered perfectly, clever dialogue, and I was interested and engaged the whole time. So I thought Hateful Eight was a good movie. You liked it, right, Brian?
Yeah.
I like it more than most of his other movies. I'm not a huge Tarantino guy. I like it more.
Did you like it better than Django?
I liked Django a lot, actually, now that I think of it. I can't tell. I can't really say which one I like better.
And Pulp Fiction. I mean,
it's a good one.
I still like that the best out of all of his, but I did like Hateful Eight. I went in expecting like a Tarantino movie, and I left. I got a Tarantino movie.
Yeah.
Great dialogue. He uses great actors. Like I like all the actors he uses. They always kill it.
Yep.
And
I like the
Tim Roth, man. And
the setting and time period. It's about the 1870s.
It's after the Civil War, so
yeah. So I like that stuff. Out in the West, and they're caught in a snowstorm, and chaos ensues.
It might have even been almost. I gathered it was a little while after the Civil War, so like 1880s maybe.
Probably.
Yeah.
6 to 12 years after the Civil War is, I think, what the consensus
So that'd be
is.
about 1880. Bang.
Nice. Eddie with the Google.
Google-licious.
Then there's The Revenant, Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Hardy. Saw it last night. It was probably one of the best visual cinematography movies I've ever seen. Ryan told me that they used only natural light for the whole movie.
Only natural light, no artificial lighting.
There's a scene where a grizzly bear attacks the character of Glass, whatever his name is. Hugh Glass, who's a real figure, right?
Famous mountain man. That expedition had 3 real famous mountain men on it. Jedediah Smith and a young Jim Bridger was only 17 years old. He was the youngest member of that expedition.
Isn't the story itself based on what
Hugh
actually
Glass's
happened
story,
to him?
yeah.
So when you say he's a real guy, well, yeah, he's a real guy because this is actually what happened to him within.
Yeah, there's some definite differences between the two stories, but it's a good story either way. Like chances are, you ain't as tough as Hugh Glass.
So just to be very clear here, did the bear rape Leonardo DiCaprio?
No.
Did you hear about all that?
He ate half of them.
Oh, where is this? No, he was bouncing up and down on his butt at one point with his hands. He was not having sexual relations with an actor of that.
So Matt Drudge was
star
full
power.
of shit. Is that what we're going with?
What?
That's what the Drudge Report claimed, is that there was a bear rape scene.
No.
Well, I didn't believe it either. I'm just saying.
Bear's female.
Yeah, it's a mother.
Yeah, it's a mother bear. Good point.
What, are you saying that women can't rape men? Is that what you're saying?
I don't think.
I think she's just saying that there's a limited market for bear-sized strap-ons.
There's logistical problems with that at the very
dude,
least.
it's a real visceral scene. I'll tell you that, man. It's hard.
I'm sure it's very fucked up. But
It's
I don't mean to
hard
make light of a
watch,
bear
man.
attack.
They did a
of
good
course.
job with it. It's really hard to
It
watch.
looks so 100% perfectly real. They finally achieved that now. So
when she's shaking him and oh man,
yeah,
dude.
and comes back for more. It is really rough, and there's a lot of scenes in the movie like that. You'll see, arrows coming from Indians. You'll see them moving through the air, hit the guy, come out his back. Like it's not. There's no like CGI like blood mist. It's really harrowing. I mean, the action scenes when he goes over the cliff. I mean, geez, Louise.
It's intense. It's a good movie, man.
I had a few complaints about it that kept it from being perfect for me. I found it a little melodramatic at parts and maybe even too long. But really good movie, guys. Now that brings us.
Wait a minute.
Yeah,
you felt that it was maybe a little too long and too melodramatic.
Some scenes, yeah.
But you didn't feel that way about the Tarantino movie?
No, I did think Tarantino movie was a little too long. 20 minutes too long is what I said. Melodramatic? No.
I think what he means about this. This was more of like kind of sentimental flashbacks that there was like whispering over the scene, and
all this whispering.
But I didn't. It didn't bother me because I think what it was is like when you're in a situation like Hugh Glass was in, like there's no way he should have lived, right? So what are the things that keep you going when there's no way you should live? And I think it illustrated that it wasn't totally revenge that was driving him. Like he had love for these people, and love kept him going a little bit too. And that's what those were his memories of. To me, that's just what I got out of it. So it didn't bug me as much because I thought when you need something to keep going, you go to the things you hate and the things you love, and love holds out longer than hate.
Makes sense, yeah.
Spider-Man's always lifting a car and thinking about catching the Green Goblin, but then he cuts to Mary Jane and Aunt May and thinks about them, and then and lifts the car.
There you go.
So there you go, Hugh Glass. That's Spider-Man.
It's just you can put in memories and stuff, fond memories, but they could just be more like him gathering wood with his son. Just something like not with orchestral music and whispering.
I know, but that's it's a movie, and that's exactly what I mean about like for me, Tarantino. That's the epitome of that is Tarantino.
No, he's always on a humorous.
Inglorious. Well, it's humorous, but it's over dramatic.
Yeah,
like Inglourious Basterds, the ending of Inglourious Basterds.
There's a difference
like
between
what happened.
It's melodramatic and over dramatic.
Yeah.
And same with like Devil's Rejects. The
are you
whole
saying
ending
it's
scene
like a little
of Devil's
campy?
Rejects. Well, it's completely because
but I think that's one of the things that he's going for.
He's definitely going for that.
The film slows down. It's all. And it's like that's completely over dramatic.
But because it's campy, I think it loses. What John is saying is that it's melodramatic. Like they're really trying to tug at your heartstrings. Whereas, like a campy melodramatic,
trying to make
fun
you laugh,
of tugging
and
on your
thrill you, and be cheesy.
But this is the problem with that. Campy is only in the eye of the beholder.
Well,
and if you, as an audience members, think, that's campy, that's not necessarily what the director intended.
But if he or she did,
I think Quentin Tarantino, when he has a funny line, he's intending to be funny. When he doesn't have a funny line and he's doing all that stuff, the orchestral music, slowing down in the film, he's being serious. He's not trying to make you laugh.
All right, you say so. Now, this brings us to the third film in this weird little triumvirate of similarly themed movies, and I don't think anyone here has seen this besides myself. Bone Tomahawk slipped under the radar. Same actor as is the main character in Hateful Eight. Kurt Russell plays the same guy in this movie.
I like
same
how you
beard.
have to be reminded who Kurt Russell is.
Sorry.
And he points at like one of the old guys. He's like, that guy.
No, because I knew you had seen Hateful Eight. That's why.
Because you saw all those Disney movies.
So
Tango and Cash.
Computer wore tennis shoes. And
Bone Tomahawk, it's got to be same, Civil War period. I can't remember. But it's a tiny western town. Kurt Russell's the sheriff, and some people go missing. And basically,
no spoilers.
Yeah,
this is actually one.
I think I can tell the plot.
It's all stuff that's on the back. Like if you read about it at IMDb, he's not telling you anything that's not on there.
This is like maybe a tiny spoiler, but what they find out, the enemies in the movie are, and this other main character's wife gets kidnapped. And who did it are not Indians per se, but troglodytes,
like Stone Age
like
people.
From The Descent.
Yeah, but they're related bloodline to the Indians, I guess, but they've refused they don't have language, no spoken language, and they live in a caves. They don't build anything.
Stone implements.
Yeah, and they're just it's a Western, but it's also a horror movie, and they blend those two things
like
really
Tremors 4?
Well. Shut up.
Come on, man.
The greatest of all the Tremors, as we know.
I haven't seen it, but
I love
Tremors, man.
Of these three movies, which all of which I really enjoyed, Bone Tomahawk is easily the lowest budget and was my favorite of the three. So I recommend it. Go out, you can download it or whatever.
It's funny you say that because that's the only one I was really interested in seeing.
Yeah.
Look,
we agree on something.
I really like The Revenant, man.
Yeah, I did too. I really did.
One of the best movies. The best movie I've seen since Mad Max.
Why is it called The Revenant?
Because a revenant is someone who comes back from the dead, and
story of revenge.
He, is
here's
essentially
an
dead
interesting take in the real story. It took him 9 months to get from where they left him for dead by the river.
Hugh Glass.
It took him 9 months to get to Fort Kiowa, and by the time he got there, he already spent all his. The story's crazy. It's actually almost even crazier than the one in the movie. But by the time he got there, he didn't kill anyone. He didn't even. He was just glad to be back.
Yeah.
His rage was spent. The guys were there, and he didn't kill them for leaving him.
I guess what I'm asking is, does the movie ever try to go for any kind of supernatural angle?
No.
Okay, well, I don't see it.
Although he kept seeing visions of his wife.
Yeah, but that's movie
but
stuff.
Those were like at the worst times, though, when he had to pick himself up and get and live.
And honestly, that's the kind of melodramatic thing that I didn't like, seeing his Indian wife standing there and gently turning away and walking. It's just, how many movies do I have to see that image in of the dead wife?
It's all been done before, bro.
Incident at Owl Creek Bridge.
What?
Did you ever see Incident at Owl Creek Bridge?
No.
It's one of the most famous episodes of The Twilight Zone, based on a short story.
Then I have
it's actually occurrence, but
what did I say? Incident?
Yeah.
Well, 10 points to you. Forget it. Thank you for the correction. And
it's based on a story by Ambrose Bierce, and it's been done. Actually, I think the one. Well, but I think Twilight Zone they actually
use somebody else's. I think they used I think it was like a French one.
Really good. Yeah.
I think it was French because that's why there's like almost no talking.
The bird. Yeah. Moving on.
What about a bird? There's a bird.
I don't want to give it.
Is the bird the word?
The bird's a big spoiler in the movie, so I don't want to give that away.
Yeah.
You just wanted to talk about it secretly while we were discussing.
No,
because
you were saying something about this. Does it ever lean towards the supernatural? And
Big Bird makes an appearance.
Well, he's right there, man.
Wearing a ghost costume.
Amazing performance by Big Bird in the Revenant, guys.
Tom Hardy kills it.
Hammets for murder!
You would think when he walks on the screen, it would just pull you out of the fiction. No. Big Bird rocks that.
It's the contrast of the yellow with the gore and the red covering his beak.
In natural light, Big Bird looks a lot more realistic. We got, well, guys, North Korea's at it again, those wily bastards. Those funny little guys.
What are they doing now?
That's a little racist.
Yeah,
that's pretty
test,
racist.
right?
Those funny little guys.
I'm sorry.
Are you talking about the ills, man?
The uns?
Is it the un or the ill?
Now he's an un. Now.
An un.
No.
Yeah.
Kim Il-un.
Kim Jong-un.
Kim Jong-un.
Then there was
Kim Jong-il.
Friendly.
Kim Jong-il. And then there was, the first one was Kim Il-sung. Boom for me.
And wasn't there a Kim Jong-il?
He's the second one. He's the middle. He's the middle guy. He's this
I'm
guy's
trying to
dad.
assimilate all this shit.
So what they reported is, hey guys, we just blew up a hydrogen bomb, which of course is thousands and thousands of times more destructive than the bombs we dropped on Japan in World War II. And they definitely detonated something because South Korea and all of our equipment detected seismic activity on that day, in that moment, coming from that place. And it's believed that they conducted an underground test, but the international community, U.S. Analysts are skeptical that it was actually a hydrogen bomb. They think it was a hybrid atomic weapon, which is like this pimped up, fueled up atom bomb, which is stronger than the normal ones, but it's not on that H-bomb level.
Or maybe they think it was a hydrogen-oxygen bomb.
I don't know. Are you being funny, or is that something real?
That would
H2O,
like a water balloon.
A water bomb, a water balloon.
Hydrogen.
Hey guys,
hydrogen hydroxide bomb.
Twice as much hydrogen as your puny American bombs.
H2O.
So just for the
That's what
listeners
Jeff
at home,
always says. I need some hydrogen hydroxide.
Oh God. So we don't know.
HOH is.
We don't know if they really blew up a hydrogen bomb. Does it matter? Well, I mean, I don't know.
It's a magnitude of scale, though.
Yeah.
I mean, the bombs we dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki were in the 15 to 20 kiloton range.
Yep.
And a hydrogen bomb is 10,000 kilotons.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
which we first invented in
kilotons.
1953, I think. And Eisenhower or Truman was still in office. The president had to justify why we created this horrible thing, because the world was already like, oh, we have nuclear bombs now, and so does Russia. That's not comforting at night. And then they're like, yeah, well, now we made something much, much worse.
And because to call back to a previous show where we talked very briefly about cold fusion, this is why we talk about cold fusion, because a hydrogen bomb is an atomic bomb wrapped around enough hydrogen that when you blow the atomic, what we would normally call, or what used to be called an atomic bomb, that undergoes fission, which is the splitting of atoms. Because of the hydrogen in the center of the bomb being compressed about equally from all sides by this massive multi-kiloton explosion, you then get the fusion reaction that, similar to the sun, is very powerful, creates a great deal of heat, and creates a secondary explosion.
Yeah.
So that's the difference, and that's why it's so much more powerful.
They detonate them before they hit the ground, right?
Yeah.
Don't they detonate in the atmosphere?
Well, just to get because the total power is essentially a sphere, if you really think about it, in terms of shock
wave.
I'm oversimplifying, but it's essentially like a sphere. If you drop it on the ground, you lose half the sphere in
Right.
the ground. If you drop it,
200 feet up,
yeah. Then you get the radius of the sphere goes out as far as it can, which it would have anyway. But then also you get the upper and the lower. You get extra.
Got it.
Your dome of awful.
Dome of awful.
Did you hear about South Korea's response to that?
Well,
Was it
in
to play
conjunction
K-pop
with
at the
us,
border?
the B-52?
No, in conjunction with North Korea supposedly doing the bomb test.
Okay, go ahead.
So supposedly South Korea responded by playing really loud Korean pop music across the border.
K-pop.
They've actually been doing that
Yeah,
for decades, because
yeah.
the North Koreans will always they have always tried to do shit at the border, and so the South Koreans have always just well, I mean, not always, but
they
have
have
for
these-
years done this thing with the big speakers so that just to fuck with them.
They blast K-pop, and then they also blast like nasty things about their leader, dear leader.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, he's a bad guy. You guys are in the last military dictatorship on Earth. You should not be happy about that.
Well, I wonder then if South Korea will pay people to write songs with nasty lyrics and doing Korean K-pop.
Probably. I don't know.
That'd be a good gig.
That K-pop is huge. There's a whole Family Guy episode about it.
Has Kanye gotten involved yet?
I don't know if he...
But has Dennis Rodman gotten involved?
Well, therein lies the real Agent D for Men in Black.
Our greatest foreign diplomat, Dennis Rodman.
Well, he works for Men in Black.
Right.
He's just undercover when you see him with one of the O's or L's or
It's hard to
Jones.
be undercover when you're 6'9".
Have we heard back from him since he supposedly was
Hidden in
going to
plain
go
sight?
visit with ISIS?
No, he didn't go visit with ISIS.
No, he supposedly was.
Who, Dennis Rodman or
Yeah.
Kanye West?
No, Dennis
Well, apparently he
Rodman.
never made it, or it would all be straightened out by now.
Yeah, he probably thought better of that one. They're even less predictable than Kim Jong Un. But what we did do
Actually, I'd argue they're more predictable. They're just much more awful. You can predictably go, do you have two options? Is
I
one
don't
more
know,
awful?
like they're killing people one at a time. The North Koreans are building hydrogen bombs. They're ramping up for some more.
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing about North Korea is how are they still a thing? And there's a one-word answer, China. So China is North Korea's biggest and only major ally. Now, China doesn't like North Korea. They're not happy with them. They don't like them blowing up nuclear weapons all the time.
But North Korea is the Joe Pesci to China's Al Pacino.
Right.
That's a great analogy, man.
And, I mean, China supplies most of North Korea's food, money, weapons, all that stuff. They're the ones shipping it in there. And the reason is this. China is very, very scared that North Korea, the government will fall apart, and then there'll be this influx of millions of Koreans into China, which is what would happen. And then that would just be a huge economic problem. The last thing China wants is more people. They just don't want...
They're stocked up on people.
They're good on folks.
Actually, I don't know if that's completely true because China just repealed the one-child law.
The reason for that, I would contend, is that...
Stormtroopers? They need more stormtroopers.
The reason for that is the one-child policy has been wildly successful in limiting the population.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It has been wildly successful in limiting the population, and now China wants more
No.
people.
Well, the reason...
No, they want more younger
Yes,
people.
you're right.
But
It's
That's
also,
right.
but it's also contributed to a huge gender disparity in the country.
Right.
Because if you can only have one kid and you have a girl, next thing you know, that girl was stillborn because you want a boy.
Right.
And also, I think there's also some statistics that back up you're more likely to have a boy anyway. But I'm not sure on that. But there's a huge gender disparity in China in terms of marriageable women and marriageable men.
And like Mark said, there's the proportion of old people to young people is way too high. Just like in Japan, there's a negative birth rate there. When you have all these old people, that's a drain on the economy. You need young people to have jobs to create economic movement, and that will support a welfare state to take care of the old people. And so China and Japan are both facing this shortage of young people and too many old folks. So that's the main reason they're repealing the one-child thing. I think you still get it. Now you can have two. Like, it's not like you can just have as many as you want. But so as far as I read, that's the tricky business going on with North Korea. That's how North Korea is still a thing, is China's willingness to prop them up to prevent this humanitarian, emergency or this influx of millions of Koreans.
On the flip side, the same can be said for most small, shitty countries or governments of small countries.
Yeah.
Shitty governments of small countries would be a better way to phrase that. They're propped up by somebody, probably.
Right.
We've propped up our fair share. China's propping up some.
Certainly, yeah. It's a little different when they have nuclear weapons, though, and that's what North Korea, how they stand apart. I mean, there's only 9 or so countries that have them, and North Korea is one of them. I mean, obviously bought them from China or I don't know if that's obvious, but it sounds like. And
there's no Korean scientists that could develop them on their own. Are we underselling them a bit, man?
I just would be surprised if the North Korean education
the issue is almost never the design. It's almost always
the materials.
The materials and the process of getting them.
Well, yeah, I'm sure they can get all that shit from China.
Also, the problem is educating the person to become the scientist. And really, North Korea doesn't have that good of schools, doesn't have that good of an education system.
They're isolated.
To
doesn't mean
to create a scientist. But let me finish. So, if they want to have these scientists, then they have to go to another country.
Right.
Guess what? The people, when they're in another country, they don't come back to North Korea after they get their science degree.
Unless they went to China, maybe.
Maybe, but probably they'd rather still even stay in China.
Well,
North Korea is so...
Unless someone forced them, you know what I mean, actually physically grabbed them and deported them to North Korea, they probably still aren't going.
Well, see, that's what I was thinking would maybe happen to them altogether, is that anyone who shows aptitude is kind of tagged for it, and then...
and
it's
plus,
kind of do what we tell you type thing, maybe.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is, if they get a chance to not do that,
sure,
they don't do it.
But if they do send guys over to train science in China or something, I'm sure they've got that person's family hostage, and they're like, if you don't return, their heads are coming off.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's probably one method they use. Now, North Korea, like one of their biggest sources of income is counterfeit U.S. currency. They created what's known as the super bill, which is this $100 bill in 20s and 50s, I guess, that are indistinguishable from American currency, and they so they make money literally, and these bills go all around the world on the black market, and it's a big problem. Secret Service is always trying to track them down and shut them down, but it's really tough because and this is like a little thought experiment I came up with that fascinates me. Which is that if you stole, I think I've done this on the show before, but if you somehow stole one of the machines at the U.S. Treasury or the Mint or wherever they make money here, if you stole that machine and you found out where to buy the exact ink that they use and you bought some of that, you found out the paper and you bought that, and you started and you did you got the serial number stuff all worked out, and you started making counterfeit currency. It's just funny to me that it could be literally identical or indistinguishable from real quote-unquote currency, and it would still be counterfeit. And that's kind of what shows you the fantasy nature of fiat currency and our money system, is that that's still counterfeit money, even though it literally is real money. It's all about
John,
who made it.
Are you, John, such a big fan, number one cheerleader of Bernie Sanders, certainly on this show, saying that it seems weird to you that we have fiat currency and the gold standard makes a lot more sense?
I don't think I said any of those things.
It seemed implied.
The gold standard, look, the gold standard, it's like, wow, this fiat currency business is a communist Jew conspiracy. I want real money. I want hard gold. No, gold is just the same thing. It's just another thing that we agree is
arbitrarily
valuable.
Placed value on.
Yeah, arbitrarily, exactly. Now, gold has some industrial uses and stuff, but that's not the source of its value. The value is just this long-standing agreement.
You can say the same thing of anything with any kind of value. I mean, we could have a cow-based economy, and cows are only if you eat meat, but if you don't eat meat, it's completely...
No, but cows are literally the price of a cow directly reflects the usefulness of a cow in the market. The price of a bar of gold reflects its usefulness in the ability to spend it, but not the actual usefulness of that glop of metal. Like that, you can't
glop of metal.
Like that, you can't use that.
You can make jewelry with it. You can make semiconductors. Anyway, you can make electronics with it.
My point was
alloys, right? Nobody use gold in certain alloys.
Its value of a gold bar, though, isn't equal to the usefulness of it in making jewelry and alloys and stuff.
It isn't, but it's based on. Fiat. The idea of fiat currency is something that has value only because the government says this has value. As
and
opposed
the people agree.
And the people agree, but its core value stems from that initial declaration. Gold had value long before there were governments.
It's because hairless monkeys like the shiny stuff.
Yeah, so
that's
gold,
what it is, man.
You're right.
Shiny metal.
Everything that has any kind of value is entirely tied to whether we all agree it has value. If suddenly people were just like, I don't like cows.
No, that's not true.
So I'm incorrect
because people need shelter and food. So if you can, those two things
so you're
have
saying a
value
house-based
beyond
economy?
What we have agreed.
Not necessarily.
I mean, well,
Brian loves sleeping
there,
outside.
there are cases where people choose some other sort of shelter, but still it's shelter. There are people, people choose different foods.
Eddie, you're right.
But it's still food.
You're technically right that all value is a matter of human agreement. But I don't think it's correct to say that to argue with me that money is a special case of the value coming only from agreement and not from physical usefulness. You don't think it's a special case?
I agree with Eddie that everything is kind of have to be agreed upon, but money is more of a special case than gold.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? There's a
Yeah, it's a piece of paper, and it's worth. You could buy, if it's $100 bill, you could buy all kinds of great stuff with that little sheet of worthless, paper. It's worth 1 cent or less, of materials. So it's a special case. The cow is the value of the cow is directly.
But even gold, like gold, okay, you have to agree upon. Really what it's worth, but it's still worth something to someone else beyond just it's agreed upon.
Beyond what the government says.
I need gold to do this, so yes, I need that gold.
I think
I really like the shiny aspect of it.
I believe Ted Cruz is advocating for going back to the gold standard. So
because he's insane.
Yeah. That's just that's ridiculous.
Now I will say there's a book from. I actually don't know when it was written, but did any of you guys ever see the movie Fletch?
Yeah, of course. Great comedy.
That was a series of books. And there was another, the author, one could argue, it was kind of pulpy fiction, and the author also wrote a series of books. There was the series of Fletch books and the series of Flynn books, both by the same author. I want to say it was Gregory MacDonald. There's a whole book about that he wrote where that was the plot of the book, like the whole, because he wrote those single twist books. If anyone,
what was the plot?
Somebody had stolen a bunch of American currency, and the crux of the plot winds up being that the government actually has a backup plan of instead of greenbacks now there's bluebacks, and it fixes their inflation problem because they have a whole new currency that they put in place. It's just interesting. Anytime the concept of currency comes up, I think of that book, which when I read it the first time. Many, many, many years ago. It was one of my first introductions to the idea of, I hadn't really thought about how currency, the idea of fiat currency, the idea of this has value because the government says it has value, as opposed to...
it's very confusing stuff, man. I wish I could say I fully understand it, fiat currency and everything, but it's very complicated, especially the way that the Federal Reserve can decide to make money, print new money, the government does that. It's all very squirrely.
Then they print the money, and then they basically give it to banks almost like a loan at an interest rate, but at a much lower interest rate than any individual could ever get it at. And then somehow that all makes sense.
And also the monetary system really is only loosely based on the amount of cash in circulation. The cash is not really the thing. It's all credit. It's all ones and zeros. It's all numbers in a ledger on a bank's computer. It's very odd. Very odd stuff.
And if you pay in cash, it's always fun to try to get some $2 bills. Pay with those. Yeah. Because that's fun.
I've seen people not think they're real. Yeah.
They still print them.
At the military bases overseas, they use them all the time.
I used to collect them because my grandmother used to give them to me, but unfortunately I lost my collection. I don't know where they are, but I used to have them.
I have a few of them.
There used to be a $1,000 bill, and then I believe they printed a $100,000 note a couple times. It wasn't for
there's specialty. There's also, I think, $1 million bill. I think.
I think there still are $1,000 bills, but they never change hands with normal people. No. It's like from treasuries to banks. Yeah, it's not.
Well, I don't think. I thought I looked up that
they
don't.
Probably get them if you want. If you go to if the bank has them.
Yeah, I think they stopped printing them. I honestly think.
No, but what I'm saying is, if
there's some out there,
they're in circulation, and if you can get them, then you can get them. And
like I think the $1,000 bill is in circulation technically, but hard to find. But then I think the $1 million bill exists.
All right. I don't know.
But maybe not. Maybe
I want one.
But to talk about the
somebody send me
imagine
$1 million
that though. It's just
bill.
the same size as a $1 bill. It's just this little piece of paper,
and you're in so much danger with that in your wallet. If anybody knows you have it, they're like,
go to Circle K. Can you break
$1 million bill?
But to talk about the agreed upon, value of stuff.
I'm wrong, by the way.
There's a movie that came out in 2015, a documentary about this guy who was an art student, and I don't know if he became an art dealer or he was actually a painter himself or whatever, but he started looking at old paintings, researching them, painters, I should say, researching them, and then creating new paintings in their style for these years that were lost, supposedly, where they hadn't created anything, or maybe they had created something, but no one they heard about it, but they never saw it, and so he would create these things and then put them out there.
Yeah, art fraud,
and it was art fraud, and he got sent to jail for it. But the whole reason that he got sent to jail for it and it was art fraud.
That's a great example.
Is because it wasn't painted by the person he was saying.
Right, it's just as good.
But
any expert will believe.
Right,
that
but people
Van Gogh,
believe that they were. I mean, this wasn't stuff that like people automatically.
What was the name of the movie?
It starts with a B, I think.
I think I saw it. I think it's the memory of it, or I might have read about the story because the memory of it's in my head from somewhere while you were talking about it. So I either read about it or saw the movie. But
there's on this subject. There's a great book I have on my shelf called "The Art of Making Money," and it's a clever little thing because the guy's name is Art, and he was a famous counterfeiter. And it was they tell you how counterfeiting money is really handed down in families. I can't remember the word for that, but it's a family thing, very private.
An heirloom.
Yeah, it's a very private industry where you can't just kind of get into it. It's like father to son, maybe there's some women in there too, but it's like
quietly in the basement.
Quietly, and the whole problem is getting greedy every single time. They're smart, they're doing it, they could get away with it. Or especially they could make one big sale, because what you do is you print the money, you sell it to some criminal on the black market for 30 cents on the dollar or less. And They just always get greedy, man. They always go back. They get away with it, and then they shut it down. And they're doing well financially, and then they're like, I'm just gonna start up the old printing press again. I just got to make another couple trays of 50s or whatever. And they go back, and the Secret Service gets them. So because they trace it. They use these computer algorithms, so they plot out where they found counterfeit money. Here's the gas station. Here's the Walmart where we found it. Because criminals go out and they try to break it for change. So they get the counterfeit bill out of their hand, and then they get real money from a store in return.
I got a few of them. I used to pass them at the titty bar. Nobody checks the money in their G-string until way after I'm gone.
Yeah. The name of that documentary is Beltracchi or...
it would be Beltracchi because it's two
Beltracchi.
Okay, yeah, I must have just read about it because I know I didn't see that.
There's a bunch of art forgery stories that are really entertaining. And thinking about what you were saying, John, about the idea of printing money that is real but is still somehow fake made me think of the famous scam with the Mona Lisa. They talk about it in the movie The Art of the Steal, but it's a really cool story. I don't know if any...
Go ahead, tell us.
I just want to see if that pings anyone's... No? Okay.
I've heard of most of these.
In 1911, I want to say, the Mona Lisa was stolen. It was stolen off the wall of the Louvre by some workman who was hired to do it by another guy. The other guy hired an art forger to forge, I'll say 5. I don't know how many copies. Say 5 copies of the Mona Lisa. He then sells the 5 copies of the Mona Lisa to 5 different buyers, none of whom are going to talk to each other about, no one's going to be like, I just bought the Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
Right? And then returns the original to the Louvre. And all I can think of is if a country that had could make legitimate U.S. currency, it is literally indistinguishable. They could take real currency and then just basically reprint the real currency with their fake currency, and then keep the real currency.
Well, then also think about this: what if possibly, and this is just a guess or an imagined scenario, but it could possibly be true. What if that art forger made 6 copies, sold 5 of them, burned the original, and returned the 6th copy back to the Louvre? And so then the one in the Louvre is not actually the original Mona Lisa. Yeah. It does not exist anymore. But it is also a forgery.
They must, when they have a piece like that, the museum must paint it with some infrared dye to identify it, on the frame or something.
There's certain ways to date the paint.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, you can examine it and find
take X-rays.
But there's also ways to forge that.
But yeah.
Now it's not always easy, but there.
Well, they wouldn't be a good forger if it was easy. They'd call it karate.
And basically, it's just all about the power of belief. There's another documentary that was on PBS years ago that this guy was a painter or art student or whatever, and he started. Basically, he would go to restaurants and he would pay his bill by counterfeiting a bill on the napkin. So he would draw like $100 bill, and it would look exactly like $100 bill. Now it's on a napkin, so this isn't really $100.
How good is this guy?
And actually, no, you know what? I think he maybe did forge bills first, and then he got arrested for it, and then he got out of jail, but he became famous, and so then he was doing this stuff, and it was actually the $100 bill was worth more than $100.
Yeah, because he's now an artist.
Because he was now famous and an artist.
Now, an even better one in some ways, Darren Brown. I've mentioned him a million times, the English illusionist / mentalist magician guy. What he does on one of his episodes, he goes through shops in actually New York City, and he passes blank white pieces of paper that are cut out in the exact size of dollar bills. He goes to a jewelry store and buys like $1,000 necklace or something with blank pieces of paper. And the way he does this is through using misdirection and all these techniques that he's mastered. He strikes up a conversation with the clerk. Da 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 da. He gives all these verbal suggestions that the clerk doesn't know he's giving. Like, yeah, you're going to take this. You're going to take this. And he's saying words like that, phrases like that, like, you're fine. This is all you need. This is the money and it sounds ridiculous, but this guy is such a master.
It's a common scam.
Hypnosis.
It's not even a hypnosis thing. It's
related.
It's related. No, it's certainly related.
Yeah.
When you say hypnosis, though, people are thinking trance.
They're not like
But it's
suggestion.
It's suggestion.
Much better term.
And misdirection.
Suggestion, misdirection. People do that all the time with change. Actually, like, I give you a 20, and then you got to give me $13 change. But then I give you a 7, so then you give me back a 20, and the next thing you know, I wind up with $27.
Well, the guys who are good at it, they slide it in there to make you almost think it was your idea, like it was your thought.
Right.
It's like subliminal messaging, but it's right in front of your face.
Now, the funniest part of that whole sketch, that whole thing that he did for real, was when he tried to do it at a hot dog vendor. And this guy was like a Pakistani guy or something. Now, it might have been the language barrier and stuff to where the suggestions weren't working because the guy didn't understand it. But most likely it's just the savvy and the intelligence and sharpness of a street vendor in New York City. And he's like, he does the whole thing. Here it is. This is what you need. This is your money. Hands it to him. And the guy's like, it's blank. It's blank. He's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? He goes, asshole. And Darren Brown just goes, oh, sorry, and walks away without the hot dog. So that is really funny, man, and it shows you. I don't know, man. It just shows you how far you can get with.
Well, and I think a lot of a jewelry store is not used to that kind of chicanery.
Oh yeah.
Whereas a hot dog vendor is going to get that a lot. They're going to get a lot of people trying to bullshit them in some way, and so they're looking for that kind of thing.
Jewelry store guys all worried about making them feel. Making these rich women and stuff or men that are buying jewelry feeling, they have a completely different.
Well, they have a true, like, the customer's always right. Like,
if
he's telling you it must be the way it is.
Right.
And it's probably not their business anyway. Most of the jewelry stores I've been in, I don't think I'm talking to the owner.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's just a clerk.
I don't know if it's so much store policy as what Eddie was saying. It's just what you've been brought up in. And people that are working jewelry stores are not accustomed to people scamming them like that. Right. Whereas someone selling a fucking dollar hot dog.
The clerk, he thumbs through the money, the paper. He looks at it. He is shuffling the bills in front of his own eyes, like counting them. So this guy is really just fooled into a state of a stupor.
Well, that's the point I'm trying to make, that this guy, he's probably not the owner.
No, yeah.
So that dude, every hot dog he sells translates directly to how much food his family gets and his rent.
Every time he gets scammed, he notices because that's $20 less in his pocket.
Yeah. He got hurt by it.
Hey, you took a counterfeit $100 bill.
So he might be easier to get. Those are the cumulative things that stack up that make you prone to suggestion. Like, you're not invested in it. I don't give a shit.
And
I
it's
love
kind of
this
funny
stuff.
too, because I think a lot of these things, when we hear about an impressive theft or something at a place like a jewelry store, not like a smash and grab, we're talking something like a scam. A lot of it comes down to almost like and this is not the best term, but balls.
Audacity.
Audacity. That's a much better term.
Yeah.
That most of they're not used to it because there's a lot more people who have the audacity to scam a hot dog cart, which is why he sees it more and why he's more likely to catch it than there are that have the audacity to scam a jewelry store.
Well, yeah, because it's small time too. Like the cops are going to be like, he took a hot dog.
Yeah,
come on, man. Like, I got better shit to do than chase down your dog.
Yeah, we got 3 detectives on it down at the crime lab.
Yeah, but then also it's I think a lot there's an aspect of people don't want to believe it either. They don't want to believe that they were a victim to that sort of thing and they were stupid enough to fall for it and whatever. So even when it's like brought to their attention, like, hey, this happened. No, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Like, no, that guy's a good guy. He wouldn't do that. You know?
And they keep the camera on the jewelry store as Darren Brown walks away. And the clerk does come out of the store and look around. Yeah, he's like, wait a minute. Something terrible just happened. And then he comes back and brings it back and everything. Yeah.
I got guys shitting bricks for a minute, though.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, my God, I just sent $1,000 out of here for some paper.
I'm fired. Yeah.
Which is the whole shtick, I think, of movies like Ocean's. A lot of those heist movies, that's what they play on. You know? The new Ocean's 11, which I can admit, sadly, that I've never seen the original, but the new one at least.
There's a new one?
Well, they're with Clooney in them.
It was originally a Rat Pack.
Oh, you're right.
Sammy Davis
but like
Jr.
The Art of the Steal, I can't recommend enough. Actually, now that I brought it up earlier, it is a very similar type of movie, except that the premise is not smooth schmoozer George Clooney. It's Kurt Russell who plays like a low rent Evel Knievel, and the whole movie
It's the cons and stuff.
Well, I mean, it's a very specific con, but there are several cons that come up through the course of the
I love that stuff, man. We should each week we should do a different scam or a con that's gone down.
Another one is
I would love to talk about.
Have you seen Sneakers?
No, I've never seen it.
Yeah,
I've never seen that.
good,
I definitely
man.
don't own the DVD. It's not a movie I've seen constantly.
Ben Kingsley and Robert
I've seen it. I
Redford.
was being a smart ass.
Oh, you do
I love
have
that
one?
movie. I own it. It's and that goes to show. I own a shit ton of DVDs, but like there's the shit movies I bought because I'd buy it for $5, and then there's movies I said I'm gonna buy that movie, and Sneakers is that. Like I love Sneakers.
My favorite part of that movie is the cheesy ending where they're asking everybody, like, he's like, what do you want? And he's like, how about her phone number? And he's like, I'm not giving you her phone number. And the girl says, you can have anything you want, and you want my phone number? And he's like, yeah. And she just rails it off to him. And I'm like, fuck it. That dude's legit, girl. He really wants to go out with you,
Brian
man.
loves
That part
the
reminded me.
romance.
That part reminded me of Armageddon.
Yeah.
Without the little requests they have.
I hated Armageddon so
none of
much,
them
I have
want
almost no memory of it.
Well, there
No,
are
they're
parts
making
that
a
movie that are
remake.
fun.
Oh,
The second one.
That's
Something.
nice of them.
Why'd you hate Armageddon so much?
Because it sucked. I mean, there's no other reason.
Yeah, but Brian,
Whoa.
you don't hold most movies to that standard.
I mean,
Jurassic
it's not-
World was great, but Armageddon sucked.
Well, here's the thing: like they didn't do like a conglomerate of like 19 stars
I know,
to make
yeah.
a shitty movie.
I know.
Like it's just Chris Pratt, man,
Yeah.
and a bunch of dinosaurs. The dinosaurs are the
That's
star of the
true.
movie. Like I'm there for the special effects to watch the Velociraptors run
When
and
they-
rewind it and watch it again and watch them. You know,
They use like a pneumatic compressor to get all those stars into one scene.
and
It's
then
just
your
like-
movie sucks.
Yeah, it's just over.
Like Steve
yeah.
Buscemi, I'm like, why, dude? You've like Reservoir Dogs.
He
and
needed
then
to buy a
this?
new set of turnouts.
Well, see, now that's a Tarantino movie I forget about. Reservoir Dogs. That might be my favorite. That was just
Wait.
awful.
That's Tarantino.
Reservoir Dogs, yeah.
Okay.
Fuck yeah, that's
And
Tarantino,
actually, Vincent Vega's brother is Mr. White.
Yeah, exactly. That's Vincent Vega's brother. That's Psycho. And now that's the criticism I've heard of Hateful Eight. Like it was a Western Reservoir Dogs.
I guess
Everybody's holed up in one room the whole time, just capping each other
I
one
just-
by one.
I just loved it. I loved that cabin and how cold it sounded outside.
Well,
and everything. It was
before
just-
the show
liked
started,
it.
I mentioned how I don't generally like movies where like everybody dies or the good guys lose. Like, or it's just like if I want to watch a movie where just bad things happen, I'll live life. And
Spoilers.
that said, having seen Reservoir Dogs, which yes, spoilers. Having seen Reservoir Dogs, it is an exception to that. I like that movie, despite the fact that would be a movie wherein
Oh.
it would almost, in a lesser movie, would be a waste of my time.
You didn't see any of those 3 movies, Eddie? Okay. See Bone Tomahawk, dude.
That sounds, and
That's
I do
on
like
my
Kurt
list
Russell.
for sure.
It's unique. You don't like troglodytes, and it's now. I will say this: if not for the faint of heart, None of those three movies are. Bone Tomahawk, even less. All three of those are very, very, very violent. Bone Tomahawk is the most violent. That's not why I liked it, but it's in there. And it's dark.
I did watch a movie this week that
John's the liberal closet violence freak.
Yeah, right.
I did watch a movie this week, and I didn't bring it up earlier, but the movie I watched this week was Love and Mercy.
Okay.
Which is all about Brian Wilson. Do any of you know who Brian Wilson
from
is?
From the Beach Boys?
Yes, from the Beach Boys. 10 points.
Was it good?
It was pretty good. And from what I understand, my brother is
his kids were in Wilson Phillips, right?
really into Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys and Smile, and he says that from what he's seen of actual interviews at the time, that John Cusack, whose behavior in the movie is a little weird, and you could say he's not doing a great job acting, like there's a certain like off-puttingness, and like he's clearly going for that, but like maybe he could have gone a different way. According to my brother, the way it's kind of like saying that Johnny Depp's accent in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is a little weird. It's like, well, yeah, but it's exactly like Hunter Thompson was talking, you know?
Yeah.
So similarly, from what I understand, his portrayal of him and
what do you give it on the 10 scale?
Well, I know what Jesse would give it, my brother, but what I would give it on the 10 scale, I don't know.
7?
I'd give it 5 out of 7.
5 out of 7?
Yeah.
Thanks. That just complicates things.
Actually, you know what? It's funny.
The 10 scale.
But out of the 10, you know what though? Proportionally,
I give it 5.5 out of 13.
I'd give it a 7 out of 10, which is right around a 5 out of 7. Yeah. I'd give it that. It's a good movie, and I'd recommend it to folks to watch.
Well, Eddie,
the only criticism I have about it is John Cusack looks nothing like Brian Wilson. The guy who plays Brian Wilson in younger years looks dead on, and so like all the early flashback stuff, all the early stuff is really, really good. John Cusack stuff, which is supposed to be in modern day or more in the future, is decent, but it's like, oh, there's John Cusack.
Yeah.
Oh,
there's John Cusack.
See,
I
would argue though they both have they have very different faces in some meaningful ways, because like John Cusack, and I don't know if this is, I mean, John Cusack has like a larger nose, but he has the same he has the same physical body type in the movie, and he has a longer face.
For some reason, I want to say that to somebody. You have a different face in a meaningful way.
But Paul Giamatti's in it. A lot of the premise of the movie, though, the only reason I in part bring it up is because Brian and John might have a perception on it if you guys ever watch it, because Brian Wilson, for want of a better term, went a little crazy.
Yeah.
Like hearing voices, and Paul Giamatti plays the guy who was his psychiatrist, who actually wound up becoming his like guardian for a while, like control, like literally and legally controlling every aspect of his life. Yeah. And then they had to like break him out of that, and that guy is no longer allowed, I guess, and I don't know if he ever got it back, but he was stripped of his medical license in California over the whole incident, over the whole circumstances around Brian Wilson and stuff. So and that movie, the movie centers
talk about ethics violations.
Now you're the trustfulness of your ratings, Eddie, are going to take a little while to improve because of the 8.5 for Star Wars.
Yeah, dude.
So that's all right. I've made bad calls,
Yeah,
we've all done it.
I mean, seriously, no hard feelings and no disrespect, but it's going to take me a minute to adjust to how you rate movies.
Well, you have to remember, Hudson Hawk is one of my top 3 movies of all time.
Well, dude, I'm not even going to say that's a bad call, because that movie's ridiculously
2
weird
hours
and
of
funny.
a man trying to get a cup of coffee.
Well, a lot of times the stuff that is, really, really reviewed badly is actually is actually decent. Like, I don't know. A lot of times the movies that get really bad ratings are
the reviews have been, the IMDb reviews have really been chapping my ass lately, man. You'll find some really good movies that have like a 6, and then you'll watch something that has an 8, and it's just trash. So I don't know.
So what movie did we just rate? Hateful Eight? Neither of these guys have seen it, huh?
Yeah. All right. So good. Real quick, we got to move on to an important and more serious topic. But Brian, Hateful Eight, 1 through 10.
I gave it going by the IMDb scale. I would give it like an 8.5.
Well, that's your opinion. 8.5.
Yeah, about that. But because I think that's what it would be on IMDb. That's what I try to base my 10-point scale.
What does that mean, though?
Well, I
want him to explain that. Let him explain it.
I was going to
because my wife and I, when we go to watch movies, we look at IMDb ratings, and they're like, if it's a 7 or better, it's usually worth watching.
I guess, are you trying to say you're trying to have at least a little a little more objectivity than like if I loved it, I might say it's a 10, but really I think it's like an 8 or 9.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, let's just standardize it to my explanation.
If I standardize it, I'll probably give it an 8. But then my bias is still in there because I like Tarantino
That's
movies.
fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. You
Well,
can
then-
like that. But
yeah.
my
to hate Inglourious Bastards so
my
much,
standard
and
is
I did
this:
not.
10 out of 10 is almost you can't really do that unless it's in the top 10 or 15 movies you've ever seen. So only this is my scale. 10 out of 10 means it's one of the greatest films, your favorite ever. A 9 out of 10 can be a quote unquote perfect movie. It's just there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that it's not one of your favorite 15 movies ever. An 8 out of 10 is an excellent movie. 7 out of 10 is a very good movie. 6 is good. 5 is watchable, but has no virtues beyond being
Tremors.
something you can watch.
It's Tremors.
Then you got
Tremors is clearly 6. Now Santa's Sleigh is a 5 out of 10.
Then under 5, Tremors is a 7, dude. I think.
The first one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then as you go up in the number of Tremors, which is close to 6 now, you go down in the scale.
Oh, yeah.
Tremors 1 is a 6. Tremors 2 is a 5.
So-
Someone was saying on IMDb last night that Revenant sucked, and if you really want to watch a good movie in that genre, watch Rambo 3. Can anyone explain to me if like Rambo 3
Which one is
like
Rambo 3?
awesome? Isn't it the one where like the helicopters blow up?
in
Every
Afghanistan.
Is that the new one?
It's in
No, I
Afghanistan.
thought Rambo 2 was in Afghanistan.
No, Rambo 2 was in Vietnam.
Oh, he goes back to
Yeah,
Vietnam.
and then
Okay.
Afghanistan is Rambo 3, and then I don't know where it went
Is
from
Rambo
there.
3 like an especially good movie or something?
No, it's horrible. I think it sounds like people cut and pasted 3 different statuses and put them into one, and that's what they got. Like,
All right.
see, that doesn't make
You
any
know, it's
sense.
actually a really good movie, I think, Stallone movie that I didn't...
Cliffhanger?
Cobra.
Oh, I'm the disease. You're the disease.
I've never
I'm the
seen
cure.
it. I've actually never seen it.
That's what it says on the poster. You're
It's-
the disease. I'm the
It's
cure.
like super Michael Mann. It's super like Miami Vice, which I didn't really remember.
He's up
Well,
against some murder.
if we're going to
cult.
say Michael Mann, let's say Heat, please.
oh,
Heat?
dude, stop.
What are you about to say,
Stop.
Eddie? Because I'll kick you out of the apartment.
Yes, just stop before you
Heat,
start.
all
right
you
Heat
now.
is a
say-
10 out of 10.
Well, all I can
The
say is
Pacino, the Pacino and...
all I can
Yeah,
say is
the
I've
first
seen
time
Miami
Pacino and De
Vice.
Niro were
I've
ever
never
seen together.
Heat.
It was
So-
awesome.
What are you going to say about it?
This is really important to John, man.
Eddie, you didn't like it?
We'll leave it be
Get
for
out.
now.
Get out.
I just
Let's move on to something a little
Eddie
more.
doesn't get to vote on movies. That's settled.
I just...
It's also been
I'm
I
angry.
think 2 decades.
I'm angry.
I think
I'm
it's been,
smiling, but I'm angry.
No, I'll give Heat a pass on the sense that it's been at least I have not seen it since a kid.
There's no reason to have to give Heat a pass.
10 out of 10.
He doesn't need a pass.
10
I mean,
out of 10.
I mean, I'll stand by my opinion when I know. When I'm like, fuck that movie,
Yeah.
I don't care
Movie-
what you think. I'll say
Maybe,
fuck
maybe
you.
you've
and
only
fuck
seen
you.
it once or something.
I've seen it once
Okay.
decades ago.
All right.
If
So.
movies
And it's
are
really
hurdles-
long, so it could be something that you might...
If movies are hurdles, Heat's like an Edwin Moses class.
Okay,
You
well,
lost me there.
I just want to ask a question about the Hateful Eight. So have either of you guys seen Silverado,
Yeah.
Unforgiven?
All of them.
Yeah.
I saw
any
Silverado the
Western-
first
I
time
love
it was
Westerns.
made when it was called El Dorado.
Okay, well, again, I'm
No, it's
asking
not-
about spaghetti westerns. I'm asking about
Yeah.
any Are you fans of the western genre?
Yes.
Love it.
Okay, so how would you
Tombstone.
compare Hateful Eight
As a
to
Western?
the westerns that you know that you think are really, really good?
Like, well, I'll tell you this. Like, I think if you're in the 8s, you just had a really good time at that movie, and it's something you would watch again. If you're in the 9s, you think that movie was. If you go to 9, that movie was. They banged it out. Like you wouldn't.
There's nothing
You wouldn't
wrong
really
with
change
it, yeah.
anything by the way you view it. If it's a 10, it's like in your. It's like one of your favorite movies of all time. So
No.
ask me your question. Where would I put it up against Open Range, which to me is might be a 10 in my book.
Okay, yeah, well, like compared to
it's not-
Deadwood as a,
Okay.
as a show.
Okay,
but-
Or
compared
compared
to
to Deadwood
that,
as a
like if I'm
show.
going to rate it strictly
It's-
as a Western, I'd probably still give it an 8. It's
Well,
a good.
my
it's a good
Mark,
movie.
in comparison
it's pretty
to those-
historically correct.
in comparison to those, it doesn't quite live up to most of the titles that you mentioned. So it's not as good as like Tombstone, Open Range,
Once
Deadwood.
Upon a Time in the West.
I think it's as
Yeah.
good as
Searchers.
Tombstone, which is pretty Hollywood.
That's true.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not like I don't
But
consider
the
Tombstone
ones you
really-
mentioned for
Can
me
you
were
equate it
Unforgiven,
to another
Open
Western?
Range, like those.
Not, it won't be
Those are,
exactly
like,
equivalent.
Guys,
two of the
talking
best-
over, talking over.
Two of the best westerns, Unforgiven and Open Range, to me.
Yeah.
So, like to put them up against that, I don't
Because
like it as
I
much
have
as
not-
either of them.
I have not seen this movie, but I just have a
You got to keep
prejudice against Tarantino because I feel he takes genre movies, he like researches them, goes, I want to make a spaghetti western, like with Django, and then watches them all, which there was another movie called Django Returns, Guns of Django, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And then he goes, oh, okay, so I'm going to take this from this and this from this and this from this. And I'm going to add like a lot more dialogue. And I'm gonna
but to be fair,
and then I'm going to make this movie. And then people who don't know about those genre movies.
Hold on, though.
They do not watch karate fucking movies.
Yeah.
They do not watch westerns.
but he's not
they
as
watch
much-
Hollywood epic movies. That's all they watch.
He's not as
They
much-
fucking go and watch the movie that's on the Pepsi cup at Taco Bell. And
not-
so then they go, Tarantino, oh my God, this movie is fucking amazing.
Yeah,
No,
but
he's
but if
not
you-
as much stealing from spaghetti westerns as he's stealing from that plot point where it's people trapped in a room.
No. I
and a
was saying
mystery
Django
unfolds.
was spaghetti
It's a murder.
western.
It's a murder.
This
mystery.
one is a western, but it sounds to me like Glenn Ross in a western
10 out of
with
10.
killings. Glenn Ross is an awesome movie.
10 out of 10. Love it. Favorite.
Never saw it.
I actually like the Big Kahuna more than Glengarry Glen Ross. They're both my main. But I
haven't
love
seen
Glengarry
Big
Glen
Kahuna,
Ross.
but-
But
He's a total conservative
watch
now. I
always
call him
was.
Mamet, but yeah.
Sorry,
I'm
what about
David.
The Revenant?
wait, hold on.
What did you give Hateful Eight?
I give Hateful Eight a 8, and I give Revenant a 7.5.
Wow, that
Except
surprises
the visually, it's a 10. Visually and special effects. Special effects are so much better than Star Wars, and I know it sounds ridiculous to even compare the two, but they are. Everything looks real, 100%. So 10 out of 10 on that. Some of the other plot and some of the
but then how do you know that the special effects were better in that than in Star Wars? Because when was the last time you actually saw a space battle?
or a lightsaber.
Yeah.
I just liked the special. They made me like the movie more than Star Wars special effects made me like that movie. It's just glowing. Go ahead, Eddie.
I have two things, though. One is to say that some of the most famous spaghetti westerns were directly stolen from, two of the most famous I can think of offhand were stolen from Kurosawa.
Yeah, no, of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
just to be fair.
People
And
take stuff-
Kurosawa stole pretty much directly from Hammett.
Yeah.
Red
No,
Harvest
right.
became Yojimbo became Fistful of Dollars.
Yeah.
Or-
People. I mean, Reservoir Dogs, which I admit I enjoyed, is basically a complete. Well, not a complete, but a good ripoff of this Korean movie, City on Fire, that had Chow Yun-fat and some other people.
He's awesome.
And so, I mean, pretty much the same plot.
Okay.
It's changed up a little bit.
But the other thing I'd ask to Brian and John who saw the movie, can you usually you can there's a scale of great westerns, but I'd like to see if you can equate it to another western that is a more classic western that we may have seen,
Equate it in quality.
quality and style.
The Tarantino one?
Yeah.
I'd say
No.
Django. It's most like that.
Yeah, it's the humorous overtones remove it from almost any.
The way he writes
westerns.
dialogue and character
Yeah.
interaction. It's
It's
just,
Sam Jackson. It's like
doing his
Tarantino and Jackson.
Yeah, but
doing
did you
his
ever
thing.
see Big Jake or
I'm not a big into John Wayne. I don't have a John Wayne western in my top 10. I don't care for the dude.
You know what a great
I don't think
great
he could act worth a
western.
fuck.
No Country for Old
okay,
Men.
did you
That's a
guys
western.
see the remake of True Grit?
Yes.
Yeah, I
There
liked
you
it.
go. True Grit, the original or the remake. Yeah.
I liked it.
Well, how would you compare this movie?
Hateful Eight to
to
True
that?
Grit or Revenant
That's
to
kind
True
of a
Grit?
good comparison.
Because that is a good comparison.
Hateful
Either
Eight.
one.
Dude, Revenant, I don't know if it's in my top 10. I liked it a lot. I'm into the whole Mountain Man thing. I'm into the whole real story of Hugh Glass, so I really enjoyed it. I'd give it a 9 because I think it was a pretty perfect movie. I didn't mind the stuff that bothered John. I thought it added to it for me just because of what I know about how he talked about the visions of the wife and stuff. But I also, in reading a lot about Native Americans and visions, especially in those really extreme times of suffering.
That's a good point.
That it made sense to me contextually in the story because he had lived with them for a while and kind of adopted their ways.
But in terms of comparing it to True Grit,
I liked True Grit. I would
Grit
put in
is-
the 8s also.
Yeah.
And
it's close.
I liked the Revenant
close.
that much. Yeah, it was that good of a movie.
True Grit's got to be better than
a lot more
Hateful
dialogue in
Eight.
True Grit.
Yeah. In the end, I mean, it's Coen Brothers. Anything they touch turns to gold, in my opinion. Now they have a couple,
And Jeff Bridges killed it.
yeah,
He killed it.
and the girl was
Man, she was so good.
so that proper that's not even a character in normal American cinema. That
And-
proud proper woman who's proud, but also it's kind of out of her element. Like that's a different character for me.
I mean,
And
it
so-
is a remake. I mean,
for sure.
But I'm saying this movie, Hateful Eight. I mean, as it's an original film, it's still kind of a remake of other films.
Yeah, I like The Revenant more than Hateful Eight, though. That's the best movie I've seen in a long time.
The thing I'm saying about Hateful Eight, like even if I was to go and watch it and enjoy it, it'd be tempered by the fact that it's going to get more press, more attention than True Grit did, I think. Probably just because it's Tarantino. I don't think a lot of people even know that True Grit was a Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah.
I don't think
a lot of people would know that either.
I watched it a second time, and it was just as good, man. That where he's got the rifle.
I just watched it the other day.
All
it
those
was
scenes
awesome.
are awesome.
Yeah, no,
I
it's a
enjoyed
great
it
movie.
just as much the other day. It was the second time I seen it.
Now, No Country for Old Men, I would call that a modern Western. And
It is.
that is a better movie than any of the ones we've mentioned, in my opinion.
I am not a fan of Cormac McCarthy.
Yeah, but Coen Brothers. No Country is a 9 out of 10 for me.
I would
All
say
day.
No
Yeah, but
Country.
all Coen Brothers did was follow the book. I agree with him. I don't think it's as good of a movie as any of those.
Oh,
I think
really?
it's up there, but I don't like
No
it as
Country?
much. I don't
Oh.
like it
no,
as much as I like The Revenant.
Yeah, I like True Grit better than No Country.
Oh, yeah?
But I did like No Country
Or
up
as much
until
as
the
True
very
Grit.
end.
Up until the
I
end.
think the last 5 minutes is very anticlimactic.
Cormac
should have either
It is.
cut it shorter before or
That's how the book
figure
ends,
something
too.
else.
I
out.
feel
I
like-
understand.
I
But
love it.
I've
9
read
out of 10.
a lot of, well, no, I've read a decent amount of Cormac McCarthy, and I feel
I've read
like
a few.
Cormac
Blood
McCarthy's.
Meridian.
Yeah, I tried to read it.
It's
The
not
Road.
an easy read. The Road, though? Come on, man. That's poetry.
Cormac McCarthy says, "How can I make people miserable?" He doesn't let us. I don't think he writes a story that's what happens.
Eddie's already admitted to he does not like movies where the good guys lose
Right.
or you know. So I would completely understand how he does not like Cormac
Yeah.
McCarthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the good guys lose.
Yeah.
Fargo. Ooh. Fargo.
Now, see, my
that's a
problem with
9 out of 10.
Fargo-
That's verging on a 10 for me.
Well, you're talking about Coen Brothers. That's not
My biggest
Coen
problem
Brothers.
with Fargo was that I felt the majority of it was very good, but I really felt I had a problem with not knowing why he needed the money, and I could not get past that.
The
Have you
car
seen
dealer?
the
Yeah.
TV show?
What do you mean? He was
No,
broke.
I haven't seen.
He was in
TV
debt.
show. I've
How?
only seen the
I haven't
first
seen the
season,
TV show.
but it is excellent.
Well,
No, they explain.
no, they don't. That's the big thing. Is that the Coen Brothers? They were like, "We're not explaining why because it's not important because this is about how the kidnapping went wrong." And I'm like, "Well, that's
Why do
great.
you need to know? He's just like
Why
everyone
is he
else.
in it,
Doesn't
then?
have enough money.
It's like the What's in the Briefcase in Pulp Fiction. Who cares, man? It's what Marcellus wanted back.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get that criticism too much, but all right. On to something substantive here.
Let's think.
What? Oh yeah. Okay. We're gonna take a little break, and you guys won't even notice the difference.